What's the cost of your own slavery? Cities of the world wide whip take to the streets. The best sleight of hand we've ever seen. We sleep to be taught and we're taught by their dreams. Oh. No,
Good evening and welcome to the Live Register. Tonight we look at the contentious issue of abortion.
This is an issue that has become more prominent in recent months, largely due to the Youth Defence poster campaign and the response to that, the opening of the Marie Stopes Clinic in Belfast, and the fact that the expert panel were due to report during the summer. The pro-life movement hold that abortion should remain illegal in Ireland, and that owing to the 1983 Eighth Amendment to the Constitution, the rights of the unborn are equal to those of the mother.
The pro-choice side want abortion to be made legal in Ireland. They also see it as the woman's right to choose whether she terminates a pregnancy or not. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the X case, a case where a 14-year-old girl who was pregnant as a result of rape was refused the right to travel to the UK, even though she was feeling suicidal.
This case ended up in the Irish Supreme Court, where the right to an abortion was established, provided the woman's life was at risk. Since the X case ruling, successive Irish governments have failed to move on this issue.
We recently caught up with three young filmmakers who were born in the era of the X case.
And this is the essence for all three women, that it is up to the state to decide who is entitled to an abortion, if at all. But if the state does decide that someone can get an abortion, you have to have a process in place whereby you can access that right. And it's the lack of the process that violated the convention.
This was a subject that people had been kind of talking about in very small groups up to then, and I think then once Youth Defence launched the Billboard campaign, suddenly there was a sort of taboo broken that people who were pro-choice suddenly felt they had a license to speak about it because there was a new urgency. So it was frustration in one sense that kind of made us do it, but it was also, and I think it is reflected in the documentary, that it is moving beyond the Billboard campaign and thinking about, you know, taking positive steps to take that kind of like spectre away from the issue, that it can be discussed openly again, and the relevance to a new generation of women as well. It's almost as if it is in people's homes they are willing to discuss it, in communities they are willing to discuss it. There is still though this inexplicable border between where that crosses over to in national journalism, because it is, and this is one of the reasons that we are actually right now we're really hoping to try and get the documentary screened in other countries, because I mean, to us it's amazing how these issues are you know, Ireland is kind of this you know, this stain on the map of Europe that seems to not filter in any information from the rest of the continent, because these issues have been dealt with in France, they've been dealt with in England, they've been dealt with in Spain, they've been dealt with in almost every other European country. If this issue was pushed and if this got more exposure, it would open up a much freer sense of debate in Ireland, I think, which would, I think, benefit the debate about sexuality as well. I think it would benefit any cause which is as of yet a taboo, because Irish people are ready to get past that weird Irish sense of identity that you know, you must keep things in the family, and that they're, you know, to bring shame upon yourself is the ultimate, you know, no, and the power of the church. That is all gone, except it visually to in the newspapers, which represent us to a huge extent to the rest of the world. That is still present. It is very frustrating because, you know, as citizens we're ready. You know, nobody else seems to be.
Very rarely do we hear women speak of their personal experiences of abortion. Earlier on, we had a chance to speak to Suzanne, who told us her story.
In, I guess, the end of July, start of August, I realised that I was more than likely pregnant, took a pregnancy test. I was pregnant, and at the time I didn't really know like what I was going to do, what was the better option. Like, obviously in being an activist, like abortion was always something that I was going to consider, and I went to my GP, and then on the same day I had an appointment with my psychiatrist, who essentially, I thought it was going to be the entire other way around, because my general experience of doctors in college are that everything I've went in for, they've assumed I'm pregnant. So I was expecting it to be terrible and the psychiatrist to be the more sensible one. When I went to the psychiatrist, they were like, abortion is something people regret for the rest of their lives. You know, a child could make such a difference to your mental health, and all this kind of stuff that only through having researched pro-choice issues that I knew was a lie. Like, if I'd have been anyone else, that probably would have been enough for me to be like, oh no, better keep the child. And discussing it with my partner, we decided that we couldn't really raise a child, so abortion was the better option. And then from then we ordered the pills off Women on Web, which to get you have to go through a doctor's consultation online, and they like keep up contact with you throughout it. Like, they send you emails, you can send them emails, they'll reply within maybe 20 minutes. But I had to get the pills shipped to the north because you can't get them into the south because of customs, and they know what they look like, so they'll stop them. When I took them, there's 2 days. Essentially, you take them over. The first day you take 2 pills, the second day you take 4 pills. The first day was fine. The second day was like having the worst period of my life, with so many cramps, with not being able to leave the bathroom. My poor dog didn't understand why I wasn't in the house, even though I was in the house. But it was like, it wasn't, I was expecting it to be a lot worse than it was, so I guess in some ways it was better expecting the worst. And then, like, it took a long time for bleeding to stop, but pain maybe lasted for 3 or 4 days. And then once it was kind of over, like, with being hormonal and things like that, there were times when I thought, I really regret this, I should never have done it. And then there were times I thought, no, this was the right thing, you spent days deliberating this, you know, you have. And there were times I'd be in tears, and there were times I'd be happy, and it was just so confusing, where I was like, am I still pro-choice? Is this still what I actually believe in? Or, like, is this hormones, or what? Like, I couldn't get around a lot of the mental things around it. And then, like, a few weeks later, I eventually realised that, yeah, it was mainly the hormones, and I was fine with it, and I knew I'd made the right decision. A month and a half ago, my psychologist, who I have to visit anyway, she said that she didn't see abortion as something which was wrong with me, or something which I hadn't got over. She said essentially I had closure on it, and that wasn't affecting me. And it was kind of around then that I decided, well, you know, this is like what I believe, that I did the right thing. Someone else in a position of power kind of believes that too, so there's going to be women out there who are struggling with it, and I'm going to go and I'm going to essentially tell people what have happened to me, because I'm not going to be ashamed of it. And I'm not, like, if I can help someone else realise that it won't affect them forever as long as they think about what they're doing, then that's what I'm going to do.
It was, I suppose, a direct response to the Youth Defence poster campaign saying abortion tears your life apart. And having had an abortion, and it didn't tear my life apart, I wanted to share that with people. And there was a pro-life rally being held up in Belfast in July, so I just took the notion on myself to write up my own story and distributed it up there as they were doing their pro-life march. And everyone that received the story on the street received it really, really well, and seemed to gain a lot from it. So then I decided that it was time to start collecting other people's stories and start sharing them out, because people don't talk about abortion in this country. It's not mentioned in sitcoms, on radio, on TV. It just doesn't get brought up. It's not that it's massively debated against, it's just a completely silenced issue.
I don't really mind if I put myself out there. I am going to get feedback, and whether it's positive or negative, it doesn't bother me. The negative ones have all been very exciting. We're in the spawn of Satan.
For a lot of people, their relationship is breaking down. They couldn't financially support another child. They were busy focusing on their career at that moment in time, and it just wasn't feasible for them to have a child. Some people, their partners were living in different countries at that moment in time for their career purposes. Some people were in their final years of exams, and some people just simply did not want to have a child at that moment in time in their life. They're coming across like a wide demographic. It's stretching from like 19-year-old college students, which is what people typically view, people that are accessing abortion. But it's also married women that have children already. It's people that are leaving their partner after being in a long-term marriage and have children again already. In fact, most people that I've had stories shared from have had children previously. So I imagine they're in the best position to decide if they want to have any more or not.
It's hard in Ireland because for start there are some people you don't know what their opinions are, and then there are a lot of pro-choice activists who seem to have the some abortions are better than others kind of view. So because mine was essentially like what a lot of people tend to call a social abortion, which is a terrible term, that I would still be judged even though they're like it's your choice, but you know, you should have been more careful with contraception, you shouldn't have got yourself into this mess, you should know better. And even that, just like the pro-life view of, oh, you're a murderer, I could handle that. I've been hearing that for years without anything. But like to tell people that I knew and that I'd been on protest with and that were my friends and have them think, oh, your abortion isn't as good, why are you doing it? I know that would have destroyed me, which is why so few people beforehand actually knew about it.
People don't have the language to discuss it because they haven't seen it being discussed. So you are kind of grappling within the unknown. And then if you see that people are starting to discuss it, it means that there's no shame, there's no stigma to it, there's no fear. And you're kind of breaking down boundaries by sharing stories, and then people are more willing to do so.
This year we have seen large mobilisations from campaign groups. The summer marked the Rally for Life, a large demonstration taking place in Belfast.
I got involved through family, friends. We're here to try and stop abortion coming to Ireland and Northern Ireland and have it out completely. So hopefully these rallies that we do every year will help us stop that from happening here. So to stop abortion completely.
I believe the aim of this event would be the same thing. It would be to encourage the people of Ireland to remain firmly for life and against abortion, and to keep abortion out of Ireland, out of the Republic of Ireland, and out of Northern Ireland.
As sometimes these things, it isn't a kind of a rah, you know, we want to change things, but just a real celebration and appreciation of all the work that so many people have done in keeping Ireland, you know, the safest place in the world for a woman to have a baby, according to the UN. And that's definitely something to celebrate by everybody. And Thanksgiving to the medical profession, who are so supportive of mothers and of, you know, people in crisis pregnancies and all that sort of thing. So it's really just a real celebration.
I think it's really important for young people to show that they're involved in stuff like this, because it's really, really an important issue today in Ireland, because abortion still is illegal in Ireland, but a lot of people are trying to bring it in. And it's really up to us to try and show people in power that we don't want it here, you know.
I'm here today obviously because I'm pro-life, and I'm here with Youth Defence, and I went on a roadshow with them around the country, and we're basically campaigning for life, giving people information about how it was a child in the womb. And the reason I'm here today is to represent life and to be here to help kind of spread the joy that we kind of spread at the rally, to show people, you know, the brilliance of life and that there's always another option, and to show them the pro-life message.
I'm joined here by Cora Sherlock of the Pro-Life campaign. So first of all, Cora, I just wanted to ask you, in relation to the X case, are we not required to legislate for abortion in limited circumstances after the ruling?
Well, I don't really think that we are, because I think what's happened with the X case, if we could just remind some of your listeners, it's a case that took place 20 years ago. It involved a girl who said that she was suicidal, and she wanted to have an abortion for that reason. Now, unfortunately, the court in that case found that there was a right to suicide in the case of right to abortion, in the case of suicide. But what has happened since then is that we've had a huge amount of peer-reviewed studies showing that abortion is actually not a good thing for women, that actually it can create further mental health problems. So I think on that reason, it's probably not a good reason to legislate on X.
Okay. Critics of the pro-life movement would say that you're only concerned with the unborn life. How would you respond to that criticism?
I would say that that's, you know, absolutely not true. I absolutely am deeply concerned for the woman involved, for the mother involved in all of these situations. And in fact, one of the main reasons why I oppose abortion is because I don't think that it's a good option for the woman. I think if you know, from my own experience, from talking to women who've had abortions, they speak about terms like regret, sadness, unhappiness, deep-seated feelings years and years after the abortion. I don't think it's something that we should be advocating towards women.
Okay. And so you've highlighted the fact that one of the problems of the debate is that it actually ignores the negative impact on abortion on women, as you've just mentioned. So what are these, well, you've already mentioned the negative impacts, but how has the pro-life movement responded to those negative impacts?
Well, I suppose what we would be saying and what we would be asking of the government is that we need to really take on board the stories of women. For example, I don't know if you're familiar or if your audience is familiar with a group called Women Hurt, which was founded last year in Ireland. And this was a group of women, Irish women, who've had abortions and who came out to tell of their stories, tell of their experiences and say this was actually not a good thing for me. And, you know, kind of reaching out to women who might be experiencing the same sort of negative impacts so that they know that they're not alone. And I think that's very important too, because there is this kind of feeling in the debate that there is no negative impact of abortion, and that's a very isolating thing to hear. If you're a woman sitting at home and you have had an abortion and you're regretting it and you're sad, I think the message to that woman is you are not alone. There are many, many other women like you, and, you know, contact the women in Women Hurt. Contact somebody who can help you, you know.
Okay.
We're here to join in a celebration of being pro-choice and proud. There's been a rash of advertisement lately implying that the majority of our country is pro-life, and it just isn't true. We all are aware that our government is not doing everything it can to protect the health of women, because 150,000 women have had to leave Ireland since 1980 to access abortion services in the UK. And that's an absolutely shocking state of affairs.
We've been waiting far too long. We've been waiting in the sun. We've been watching days go by. Waistbands low and spirits high. I've been watching you for days.
From the church, from the state, women must decide their fate. From the church, from the state, women must decide their fate. 20 years is too late. Time for them to legislate. 20 years is too late. Time for them to legislate. 20 years, we won't wait. Time for them to legislate.
These are women who do not have credit cards. These are women who do not have overdrafts. These are women to whom we say, have you checked under your sofa cushions for change? Do you have a bill you can't pay this month? These are women who have sold their cars. These are women who've cut off their phones. These are couples who are out of work, who are looking for work, who are making the responsible decision as to whether or not they can parent a child, or in most cases, another child. These are victims of rape. These are women and couples whose wanted pregnancies are facing catastrophic fetal anomalies. These are girls as young as 14 and women as old as 47. These are me, they're you, they're your mothers, they're your sisters, they're your daughters, they're your girlfriends, they're your wives, they're your partners. They are the 1 in 3 women in the United Kingdom who will have an abortion in her lifetime, and it is a shame that they need to get on a plane and travel to another country.
Now, there are those who say that if you liberalise the abortion laws, the floodgates will open. This is an absolute insult to Irish women. Our abortion rates are absolutely similar to abortion rates in every other country. Our abortions just don't happen here. That's the only difference.
Claire, I think at this stage most people know about the X case, which happened obviously 20 years ago. But why is that case so important when discussing abortion in Ireland today?
Well, I suppose that was where the legislation was tested, where the Supreme Court issued a ruling to say that it was compatible with the Irish Constitution to have lawful abortions carried out in Ireland where the life of the woman was in danger.
and it became, if you like, the legal ruling in relation to abortion in Ireland vis-a-vis our constitution. So that set the scene. The problem has been, obviously, is that successive governments over the past 20 years have never enacted that legislation. So the medical profession have no certainty whatsoever, and de facto it's meant that no abortions are carried out in Ireland, even though it is lawful for them, albeit in very limited circumstances.
I was going to ask you, why are we even talking about this X case when it happened 20 years ago? Why do you think there's been no movement on it?
I honestly believe it's political cowardice. I think the population has gone way beyond where the politicians are. Most of them think that Ireland is still rooted in the past, strong church domination, and they are motivated in everything that they do about votes and fear of losing votes, and they think it's an unpopular one. Now, I actually think they've made a huge miscalculation, because my experience is most Irish people understand the complexities of the issue. Every Irish family has had a woman in it who's had an abortion for all sorts of reasons, and in actual fact the debate shouldn't be just about the X case, which was such limited criteria, important and all as it was, but it should be about all the other reasons as well, why women have to choose abortion, and provide facilities there that support their choice, whatever that may be.
Now, we've been waiting to hear back from an expert panel which was supposed to report back in, was it June, or it was some stage during the summer? So what's happening with that report now?
Another cop-out and delay really by the government. This came out of the European Court of Human Rights ruling, which said that Ireland had violated women's human rights by not giving clarity on the legislative situation regarding abortion in Ireland. They dragged their heels. They suddenly said, oh, they needed an expert group to look at this, even though everybody knows what the issue are, and so on. They have stalled. We don't really know what's going on, to be honest. The group has been set up for many months now. We keep asking in the Dáil, and we're no nearer to knowing where they are with their findings. So the word on the street is that they want to leave it off till after the children's referendum. There's another view which says Fine Gael is scared and they're waiting for a little bit. Labour are saying no, they will agree.
There does seem to be a lot of backbench Fine Gael. A lot of the backbenchers seem to be against any movement on this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I suppose you could look, Fine Gael is the biggest party in there, so they represent the whole cross section of the spectrum. We have from Miss Fornication herself, who intervened in the Dáil, like the throwbacks, the reactionaries. Then you'd have very liberals as well on the other wing, totally pro-choice, and then you'd have a big group in the middle. I think they will be whipped into line. I think Minister O'Reilly will legislate for this. But the backbenchers have been subjected to a sort of a sustained campaign from the anti-abortion lobby, and some of them just to sort of stand out, be seen to be doing something, given that they're getting attacked on the economic issues, want to curry favour with a few old people or something, and are adopting a stance on it. But I think they're out of touch, and I think most of them will be rowed into line.
What we're facing at the moment in Ireland, we really are at a sort of a crossroads in the abortion debate. The expert group has been charged by the government to go away and discuss the issue and come back with a series of options. Now, if it comes back with options that say we have to legislate for abortion, we'll know that that is really a political decision, because there's no medical reason for abortion and there's no legal imperative on us requiring us to legislate. You know, it's hard to know what the expert group will say. I mean, everyone is kind of waiting at the moment to see. I suppose my concern and the concern of the pro-life campaign would be based on things that the Minister for Health in particular has said over the last couple of months. He said that this government won't be one that will refuse to legislate for abortion. And that, if he does that, well then Fine Gael would be going back on its own pre-election commitment, where it said that it specifically wouldn't legislate. So we'll be watching very carefully to see what the expert group says and how the government acts when the report comes back.
Now, an interesting development is the opening up of the Mary Stopes Clinic in the north. Can you tell us some details about that clinic?
Yeah, it's great, like that. I think it has, like, it's, you know, a centre for, you know, reproductive health, and they have said that they will carry out abortions under lawful abortions on the island of Ireland, really, in the first open way. So from that point of view, it's kind of historic. The circumstances in which abortion is legal in the north are pretty much the terms of the X case. It's not the same as Britain anyway, so there probably won't be that many. But I think it's more symbolic that after years of particularly reactionary domination from both Catholic and Protestant communities, that this facility is opening up is, to me, a very good step forward.
Now, obviously, it's in the north, it's a different jurisdiction, so it doesn't have any impact on the legal situation here in the south. But what about the political and social situations?
Yeah, I think it does. I think that's where its significance is, really. Like, we had been talking about going up to celebrate the opening. I think it is a step forward. It is representative of what we found when we moved the legislation last year to, on the X case, or earlier this year. It's about getting a debate and bringing these issues out in the open. So much of the trauma and stress that women have to deal with around the abortion issue is because it happens in secret, it's not spoken about, it's still exported by and large. So the fact that it isn't, and it's there in your face as it was, can only be progressive development, because it means that people are engaging in the dialogue and discussing all the many reasons why people end up having to choose abortion as an option. And it is an option every day. On average, 9 people today from the south will decide to have an abortion. So the idea that we don't have facilities here, I think it's particularly important given the economic austerity that has been whipped up. Simply the option of travelling won't be there for people, so the choices will be either to take a risk with medication over the internet and possibly damage their health, maybe the re-emergence of backstreet abortions, which we would have had certain elements of in the early part of the 1900s and so on, or they'll be forced to, carry on with a pregnancy that wasn't wanted and all the issues around that,
Do you think that the Marie Stopes Clinic in the north will have any bearings on the situation here in the south?
I certainly hope not, because I think in the Republic we are entitled to decide our own laws on this area. And, what has happened in the north of Ireland is not something that I would be happy about. I think that the Marie Stopes Clinic have come in there into a situation where the majority of the people in the north of Ireland have resisted the extension of the Abortion Act 1967, which introduced abortion in the UK. They have consistently said, we do not want abortion in the north of Ireland. For the Marie Stopes Clinic to open, I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it should affect us, because we have our own right to decide on this issue.
Mm-hmm. So there appears to be concerns on the pro-life side that the government will actually legislate for abortion.
It seems to be that way, all right. There are a number of Fine Gael backbenchers who seem to be very opposed to any legislation on this. But speaking with Claire Daly earlier on, she seemed to think that it will be pushed through, that these backbenchers will be brought into line with the government. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
I suppose it all rests on the expert group reporting back.
Yeah, basically nothing really legally can happen until they've reported back. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for this week. Join us next week, where we will be discussing the issue of housing. But until then, you can keep up to date with us at the liveregister.tv and on our Facebook and Twitter pages.
What's the cost of your own slavery? Cities of the world wide whipped it.